Welcome to Indie and NO, the podcast inspired by our favorite quote, self-advocacy is BS. This podcast is about empowering neurodivergent folks to say no to what doesn't work for them and yes to what does. Brought to you by Umbrella US, the ND23 Project, and hosted by me, Genie V. This podcast is your self-advocacy sidekick. Whether you're a neurodivergent self-advocate, caregiver, an ally, or curious about advocacy in general, this podcast is for you. You get no more of the, if I can do it, so can you narrative. None of that, if you have the money, you deserve care BS here. Episodes feature captivating conversations, interviews, and expert advice on self-advocacy with a focus on community care. We know that self-advocacy only works when there is access to the support and care we need. What does that mean? Without community, self-advocacy goes nowhere. Join the movement toward true self-advocacy, where we know that without community support, self-advocacy is BS. Subscribe now to Indie and NO, and let's journey from overwhelmed and undervalued to saying no to what holds us back and yes to what helps us move forward. Hi, I am Genie V, and this is Indie and NO, and I am coming to you from my amazing living room, where you will see lots of things around me, like my Dungeons and Dragons books right there, or you might see Rhett, the rainbow bulldog over there. Today, I am wearing a shorter hairstyle than normal and rimless glasses, but my t-shirt is the most awesome thing. It is the trappings of tabletop fantasy gaming with the words in rainbow, chaotic queer, written across. Now, today, we are going to be doing something that kind of hits home with the subject of Dungeons and Dragons and fun things like Rhett the Rainbow Bulldog. My guest is Stacy Casson, and we're going to be talking about play and how that works in keeping our well-being perky, shall we say. Stacy, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. For those of you that can't see me, I'm a very tan woman with short, wavy, salt and pepper hair. I have on clear glasses, and I'm wearing a plain burgundy crew neck shirt, and I have a brown textured background, and I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, before we get into the meat and the gravy, I like to do sort of a get to know you kind of question. So this one's going to be a surprise for you. What kind of music do you like to play?
All of it.
All right.
I love all of it. I guess my default is probably late 80s, early 90s, because that was kind of a formative time for me and music rocked then. Aha is my favorite band ever. Go Morton. They have more than Take on Me. I love jazz. I was quasi-classically trained, singing in oratorio society, but I love music. I love all kinds of music. I like energetic music. So all of it.
So what's your favorite type of jazz?
Ooh, probably the classics, the Billie Holidays, the Ella Fitzgerald. But I like acid jazz and trip hop. Like, I like the jazz fusion things like Nujabes, where we have those kind of integrations together. So I like it all. Favorites are so hard for me. It really depends on the mood.
Same. Yeah. It's like, what's your favorite music? All of the 80s. Don't ask me to narrow it down to one, but usually when we get into talking about music, it is something that is sort of a, even if you can't name a specific, there's something that, just really jumps out and speaks to you at any particular moment. So thank you very much for sharing.
My pleasure.
Now, we do talk a lot about neurodivergence, and I'm really curious about people and how they came to know about the neurodivergence that they experience. Would you be willing to share some of your journey with us?
Sure. I'm actually late diagnosed on this journey, but I've had family members for a very long time on this journey. So it wasn't anything new or strange to me. It was just like cool because my family members anyway, they have such a unique perspective, and I learned so much from listening to what they had to say. And I think it's not surprising once you see some of the lesser known attributes. And I think I started getting curious just watching other people's journeys, being a part of other people's journeys. I've always been involved in advocacy, awareness for anything. It was just like, hey, my kid has this and we're doing this. You want to help? Okay. And I'll learn about it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to be, what's the word? Fluent, culturally fluent. And it helps. I try and be as inclusive as possible. And I'm not perfect, but when you kind of understand a little bit more about the neurodivergence that's out there, then you can be more inclusive and treat people in a natural way that they feel welcomed and they're comfortable. And that's really important to me. So my own journey has been not thinking because it didn't tick the boxes, right? I'm not stimming, I'm not repeating things. I can look people in the eye and so on and so forth. But when you see other people, and it's like, well, I do that, but I'm not doing it to that level. And this idea of a spectrum, not just of being neurodivergent, but just being human. I love this lady, and I don't want to butcher her name. Hang on, I don't want to butcher her name because I don't want, I like to give credit to where it comes from.
Right.
And I didn't give her whole name. So Cara Jean Wilson and I were talking, and she kind of talked about humanity as like a bell curve. And there's maybe 3 snowflakes at the top. And we designed the whole world for them. But most of us think differently. And actually, the idea of an expansive idea of neurodivergence came from my first talk with Umbrella US and meeting AJ. Because if you exist in this world and you're not part of the quote, quote, norm, you're going to think differently. As someone that identifies primarily as a female, if I go out walking, I have to think differently than, straight white male. They can just go out. They don't have to think about what path shall I take? Do I have to take protection? Should I let someone know where I'm going? What am I wearing? I don't have to think about all those things. If you have a disability, and I don't know, I can't speak for some of the disability, I'm just imagining. But if I couldn't see or couldn't hear, I'm going to navigate the world differently, and I have to think about different things than the majority of people. So this expansive idea of neurodivergence was courtesy of being a part of the Umbrella US, and really made me think about how we all experience the world in a different way. And I think I'll go off track, but that's been my journey. For me, it's been, oh, that makes sense. And as I interact with more of the community, it is, wow, what supporting people because they've been there. And as I'm learning more, because there's so much information out there, some of the dots, I'm connecting some of the dots. There is, I want to give more credit. I just found another creator. They're on LinkedIn, and it's been really eye-opening. Some of what is, so the one that they talked about today, sorry. Okay, I found it. The creator is, I just had it. The creator is neurodivergent Lou. And one of the things they were talking about was how thoughts can be a form of stimming. Some people, we have this thought just keeps coming on and on in your mind and it won't go away, kind of like a bad earworm. And that can be a form of stimming. And that just like clicked and made so much sense to me, since I don't do what people normally associate with people on the spectrum. So I hadn't thought of it in that way. So as we are learning and advocating for each other and advocating for ourselves, it just makes more sense. And I just have an appreciation for the unique perspectives that we bring into the world. I was introduced to, I will be very frank, when I was introduced to knowing anything about neurodivergence, it was this, oh, this is so horrible. Like, your child is this, and this is this, horrible epidemic of horror is the word. It was just really ugly language and learning on the journey. And they're not broken, or we're not broken. People are not broken. It's a different and unique perspective on the world. And sometimes, I don't remember who said this one. And I'm quoting so many people. I think this is Aaron Anatavi. They love the superpowers. They hate the kryptonite. Right? I thought that was really powerful. And that, I think when I was introduced to this, it's all kryptonite, right? Or you have these media stereotypes like Rain Man or something like that. And it's just being different. There's a gentleman, he wrote a book, Look Me in the Eye. I really don't remember his name. I'd have to Google the book. But the book is called Look Me in the Eye, and I haven't read it because I collect books that I don't read. I think there's a term for that. I'm gonna read them one day. But
I tend to think of the term that goes with that as bad back. Because I have carried books everywhere that I have never read. And it is like I would have a bag full of books that I would never read. Or I would move from a house to a house and it would just be book upon book upon book. And it's like, I need the book in case I ever need the book. If I get into a situation where I don't have the book, I know that I'm going to beat myself up over it. And it took an earth-shattering change to my life to finally just say, I don't need the book. So I get it. I get it. And it's never much fun to go through the earth-shattering changes to change that pattern. So you don't have to apologize or explain. We're all bibliophiles around here.
But what was interesting about him is he makes some equipment that's used in music. I don't remember what it's called. We'll just call it a woofer. That's not what he makes, but he makes this thing, and he just got it. He understood, I think it was waves, and how that connects to sound. He just got it. And other people, like, they need to do math and calculus to understand it, but he just got it. And that was just really interesting to me. And again, coming into, sometimes you can't, I was listening to, and I don't remember, I can't cite my source. It was a LinkedIn talk of people that were late diagnosed. And one of their biggest challenges that some of these ladies shared were they can't show the work sometimes. And that resonated so deeply because I'm an analyst by trade. And then I had to show the work, and it's like, oh, math, just, it's like, okay, I have to go do all this tedious stuff to come to the same thing that I told you, but you don't believe me because I don't I didn't show you this work. Oh,
Right.
thank you for looking up the book. Yeah, by John Elder Robinson. So, did I answer the question? Because I think I lost my train of thought. Did I
You
answer the question? Okay,
you
cool.
did. Do you have a particular memory of something or like an event or a realization where you just kind of stopped and said, "I'm not like other people when I do this."
I don't. I think I've always kind of felt apart from
Hmm.
everyone. Although I have so many friends, I have a lot of friends. I'm very popular. Uh, I'm very charismatic. I think. I don't think I'm tooting my own horn, but I'm really shy, and people don't believe that until they see it. Because I'm great one-on-one in person, but networking events is anathema to me. Like
Yeah.
I'll be at a party in the kitchen washing dishes till the cows come home. But I guess when I felt the first time I felt really, really different was when I started college. And oh, thank you. I started college and we got to meet the dean of the university because of one of my scholarships. And he
Hmm.
said, "Hi, I'm Mitch." And I said, "Hi, I'm Stacy." And then I collapsed into a heap of laughter. I could not stop laughing and I don't know why. And I was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And then it didn't get any better because I was going through like my Anne Rice interview with the vampire stage. So so I'm talking about, the vampires and just blood. And
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody here must think I'm the strangest person ever. And the people were either they were very kind or they were genuine, but they said, no, you keep things interesting. So I
It's
just
kind
kind
of
of embraced it. Like when I went to high school or middle school, I don't remember which one. My mom dress me in Holly Hobby knee socks. And after you've just looked like a dork your whole life, I don't care anymore. So I wear the flower in my hair. I wear bright and colorful clothing. And it's liberating to just be me, be as quirky as I want to be. And if we go with play, it brings other people joy because I am being playful just even in my appearance because it makes me happy.
awesome. So, one of the things that I noticed in my life, and this is where the question of being not like other people and our topic for the day, which is play, sort of intersects. Because when I mean, from 1982 until 1992,
Mhm.
G.I. Joe was my thing. And even today, I am still a huge collector of G.I. Joe. I appreciate all things G.I. Joe. But here I am, 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, get my first job. And the majority of my money is going to buy G.I. Joe figures because I really enjoyed that. And I remember one day, my mom's boyfriend at the time made a comment about, "You're too old to be playing with toys." And I thought about it and I said, "No," and went back to it. So here I am, 16 years old, in the middle of my bedroom floor, setting up my action figures to tell a story that's only being told in my head. I don't care if the story never goes anywhere else. It's the story that I wanted to tell in that moment. And that moment has stuck with me. And that's why the topic of the day fascinates me so much, because you are a coach who loves to talk about play and creativity. You say in your LinkedIn bio, play is serious business. What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, G.I. Joe is a great American hero.
Yes.
And that Cobra unveiling, oh my gosh. Uh, it's serious business. And I was actually shocked when I started to lean more into play, how triggering play is for people. They were
Mhm.
very resistant to play because I think people think it's a nice to have, it's frivolous. But I say it's serious business because just being human and living in this world, it is a dark, dank place.
Mhm.
It is a heavy place. And burnout and overwhelm are so prevalent. And I seriously think part of it is lack of play. Lack of play makes you mean. You're just not a nice person. You're not nice to other people because you have not experienced play. And play for me, it's not board games. It Why I love play so much is it reduces the stakes. It takes the high stakes away. And I learned or uncovered, because I've always been playful, but it connected the dots to me during COVID when I got back into this dungeon crawler video game I used to like to play called Fate. And part of it was you're in control,
Yep.
recovering control freak, because you're just wandering through the dungeons. You know what's going to show up. You can always do a portal and run away when the monsters get to be too much.
Mhm.
But as I was playing the game, I noticed that it was kind of a low stakes way for me to get more comfortable taking risks. When you're crawling around the dungeon, you need weapons, and I used to save up to buy weapons. But as I played, I recognized that weapons are just lying around, or I
Mhm.
could go fishing and find them. And you have to let go of things sometimes to level up, because the level 5 sword that you had that has all these amazing features, it's magical, it fights zombies, that's cool. But when it's coming up against a level 42 monster, that's not going to work the same. And it's a safe place to try out a different weapon, because the worst that you can do is just restart the game. But I noticed through play that I was taking more risks in life. I was trying new things. I also discovered art. And what's the worst that would happen if I post it?
Mhm.
People ignore it, or people say, wow, I don't know how you speak to my soul every day. So that's why I say play is serious business, because it takes away the high stakes, and also it is impacting our world at this very moment. There was I gotta look up her name. It starts with Jane. I think it's Jane McGonigal. Forgive me.
That's
But she was talking about, I don't know if it was her, but there was a group of gamers, and there was this kind of public play project called Fold It. And they put it out to gamers to fold a sequence of proteins. This might have been HIV/AIDS. Don't quote me, but they were trying to fold a series of proteins that had significant impact to our lives as human beings. And the gamers figured it out in 3 weeks
mm.
through play. And that's why I think play is so serious, because it takes away those high stakes so we can tap into our intuition and into our community and collective knowledge to solve things in new and innovative ways. If you are always just, the floggings will continue until morale improves,
Mhm.
it's not going to improve. When people feel so pressured, it strangles their creativity, and then they're not it's really counterintuitive to try and force every single productive moment you possibly can. Whereas if you allowed people to play or take a playful approach, you have more solutions. At my day job, we had something called Startup Lab, and they brought out Legos. And oh my gosh, that was a whole other thing. Even though I'm really bad with Legos, but Legos are hard for me. But and they had googly eyes, and googly eyes is the best thing ever. But I noticed all my colleagues, they were taken aback a little bit, but they got into the Legos and started, building their ideas. So play also exposes us to different ways of approaching something, of thinking of things in a different way. The lady I'm talking about, she made a game called Super Better, and she literally played her way back to health. She was bedridden at the time and depressed, and she came up with a game to help her play her way out of it and build a community. I mean, yes, there's single play. You can play solitaire. I mean, it's literally called solitaire, but Dungeons and Dragons or other tabletop games, you're bringing in a community, and play also helps with that as well. To fight my nerves when I'm in these networking events, it's like, let's play a game. Let's give yourself a chore. You're the official greeter, so go greet people. And it takes away some of that tension because it's just a game. Yes, she found it. Jane McGonigal is the lady I'm talking about. So that's why I say play is serious business. It is not a nice to have. It is vital for our health and for our cohesion as humanity.
Attention. And
All good.
when we mention play, one of the things that I'm not an expert on this. I don't know if this is something that you bring into it, but you were talking about how the intersection of play and the real world comes together. And there's been a lot more discussion of game theory in philosophy and the idea of gamification in project management. Where does the need to play come from?
I think it's just part of us as human animals. I mean, you have your dogs, and what do? They play. It's a learning technique for young pups to play fight with their siblings. I think it's biological. I'm not an expert. I don't have a PhD in play. It is life experience, but I think it's biological because just as stories are something that you see in human society, we pass down these traditions, and we have fairy tales to tell powerful truths, but they're hidden in this idea of play. Uh, when you are doing martial arts, for example, you have forms or katas, depending on which form you're practicing, and those are basically play fighting. My husband liked to call Tai Chi doing horribly brutal, vicious attacks in slow motion, but it is come across as play. So I think it's an instinctual part of learning. It is a technique to learn, and it helps people to understand things. Like if you play hide and seek, that's a fun game, right? Hide and seek is fun until the Fire Nation attacks. Then hide and seek, you have some real world skills, right? Or tag, cardio, cardio, cardio for when the zombies come and get us. So I think play is part of our evolution, and it is a way to teach the young humans as they grow up.
That worries me a little bit because when we start talking about Monopoly, I don't want to play Monopoly. Those people scare me.
So Monopoly actually started out as the landlord's game. And the lady that created it, she actually was trying to show that this is bad. Greed is bad. And it absolutely brings out the worst in some of my children. But it's a tool, and I think it's still learning.
Yeah.
You are learning. Maybe if you play a game, there's another game. Oh my goodness. I don't remember what the game is called. It was a lady that was trying to show the impact of racism. And it was kind of similar to Monopoly, but you do something and then you'd get penalty points, and you would kind of see that this is not working. So Monopoly, even though it's a horrible experience at times, you see why this lady did not like the rules of that, how unfair it is. And when you land on this place with all the hotels and you're trying to mortgage all your property, it's not fun.
No.
But that's better than the real life out there where you literally are trying to find, rob Peter to pay Paul to make ends meet. That is not fun, right? That is not fun. But play, I think, is another way to test things out. Well, what would happen if we did this? Okay, well, we don't want to do this on real human beings, so let's do a simulation and see what that looks like. And I don't think it's another tool, and it has a time and a place for everything. I mean, you probably don't want to play at a funeral, but there's still, I don't know if you've been to a Jamaican funeral, we tell stories, there's laughter, even in the serious, stark moments, and it gives you a breath of air. So I see what you're talking about, though, with your concern, or even war games. I mean, that's not fun play. That's kind of deadly. And, we see some of these come into the real world in very unfortunate ways. Right. So I get what you're talking, but I think they're all tools, and everything can be taken too far.
And one of the things that I've noticed as a game player is that there's been a shift away from the Monopoly style of game where it is all about the competition, more to cooperative play. And that brings us to this idea of community, this idea that self-advocacy is not done in isolation. You can play solitaire. You can, play a simulation game by yourself. But when you're able to connect with others, play has a tendency to have a multiplier. So what kind of support have you drawn from others? What ways do you find sort of others to help you kind of live out this life?
I think perspective taking has been the biggest contribution of my community. Just learning about different ways of looking at things and hearing other people's stories and journeys, tips and tricks, life hacks. When we look at something that seemed pretty straightforward, but you get some people with different perspectives, something that you think, well, this is a cake, right? You think it's a cake, and somebody will look at it and say, this is an abomination because it's not healthy for you, or this is a cake, but it could be decorated different. I mean, people look at the cake and they have different points of view on it, and it means something different to them. And because I think a lot of times, especially in this world that likes to put things on a binary, it's black or white, it's yes or no, it's this or that. I'm more of a fan of yes and when we are, I lost my train of thought. Can you ask the question again? Oh, community. Yeah. So when you collaborate with other people and you get a different perspective, it's more expansive, as you're talking about, rather when sometimes everything is competition and you're not sharing. We build those silos and we miss out on vital information because we're not sharing. I don't remember if it was some company, forgive me, might be IBM. They are opening up their AI training models to help people understand how the training is happening. So we're seeing into their black box. And I hear a lot of things and I can't quote it all, but
that's okay.
It's kind of like when you want to go fast, go alone. When you want to go far, go together. And when you have this collaborative spirit, it helps you uncover the things you didn't know that you didn't know. And I never thought I would be quoting Donald Rumsfeld, but that quote has resonated with me. And I think that is the power of community and collaboration. You get to know about the things that you didn't know that you didn't know.
Yeah. Now, I mean, when we're talking about play, and you kind of actually touched on this very early in the interview, there's resistance to that because, for whatever reason, there is this idea that play is something we grow out of. And yet, many of us within the neurodivergent community, many of us within different experience of neurodivergence, we are more open to that. So, how do we protect ourselves in this in an holistic and ableist world that tells us, well, you should grow up and be more serious, or you should take the job more seriously? We can't look at this like a game. This is more important. Than how do we protect ourselves in that?
Well, part of it is just being awesome. Like it kind of proves them wrong. And I think when you give results, then they'll start to connect the dots that, and it might not be as an institution they're going to change, but they might leave you alone to go do that weird play thing you do because they get results.
Right.
You know, I did a presentation on how the Justice League can be part of building communities, and everyone loved it, but it was different. It was playful. If I'm going to introduce something, I might bring in a whole new world and bring in the Genie and things like that. And it is a balance, because we are adults, and you have to know your audience and not be too childish, right? I mean, there are phases and there's ages for things. Like, kids might read Archie comic books. I mean, I grew up with Archie comic books, but you're not going to give your 12-year-old Preacher or Spawn. I mean, that is just not appropriate for them. Or even the book Mouse is kind of well, you can, but I mean, and have those conversations. I'm not the moral police. It but like, it has an impact to them. So how do we protect ourselves? I think the first thing is just do it. be sneaky, whether it's, rebel and put googly eyes on your stapler, or wear the flower in your hair. I think the results speak for themselves. And there is scientific research to back us up. There is research on play that is out there, and the benefits of that. If bare minimum, a lot of play is physical. Tag, the games we grew up with, tag, jump rope, and that gets you moving. But it keeps your mind going. I mean, how many ads do you see on your phone for play this word game and build up your mind? So you can't have it both ways. Right. You can't have us not play and play. I mean, even LinkedIn has games now, and this is a serious business networking site. It has play, and it tells why they have play. You can look it up. I'm not going to look it up anymore. I want to be present here. So I think it is a balance of using the facts with it, like do some research and say, no, here's why it is important to play. I'm fortunate that the company I work with has incorporated some aspects of play with the Legos and things like that. And we also value diversity of thought, and that brings in some ideas to be creative and brainstorming. But I think if we model that behavior, then people kind of see, because I think a lot of people believe that creativity is a natural gift, or, oh, you're so creative, I wish I was creative. And it's like, you can be creative too. It's a muscle, and it's a mindset. I think sometimes people think play is, you have a board game and it's wacky or crazy. or it is something like Dungeons, Dragons, or video games. But play to me is being curious. I think curiosity is something that should be valued because that's where we make discoveries. What if somebody didn't look at the bread mold and go, huh, that's interesting. I wonder what this will do. And now you have penicillin.
Right.
That is play. If you decide, I wonder what this eyeshadow would look like on me. I don't wear makeup, but I just started to. I got bored one day. I'm like, I'm gonna try out some eyeshadow. You know, that's play. It's thinking about how can I do the things I don't want to do. Like if you don't like a long commute and you decide how many red lights can I miss or how many green lights can I get, and you think of that, that helps to get you through the day. So
Yeah.
play, the actual definition of play is doing something for the sheer joy and recreation of it. And I
Yeah.
don't see how that is incompatible with work. You
Right.
want us there in this office for 8, whatever, 9, 10 hours a day, and you want us to be productive, then you should value play because that's where the ideas come from. When you allow people to be curious, when you allow people to go down the rabbit holes. I make most of my discovery going down a rabbit hole, like, huh,
Yeah.
I wonder why this is happening. This doesn't seem right. We should look into this more, especially when we're a society that has such huge, enormous amounts of data. When you slice it down and like, well, let's look at this. That puts all this big giant data into perspective, and then you can use it to find more examples because you've gone down the rabbit hole. So it is, yes, it's perfectly compatible with work.
That's awesome. What is your favorite way of sort of just letting yourself get into that moment of just the sheer excitement, the sheer joy of doing a thing?
I think it just begins with mindset. If
Mm-hmm.
if you approach, how you approach something sets the tone. If I approach washing the dishes like, I gotta wash the dishes, I really want to do this, blah blah blah, I mean, I'm already bringing myself down thinking about it that way versus thinking about how clean can I get the dishes, or how many dishes can I do in 30 seconds, or can how much, how many dishes can I wash before I have to add some more soap or something like that. Now it's a game. Now I'm curious, like, you know, can I get, how hot of the water can I stand? Because I use a lot of hot water. So the dishes dry faster, right? And I think mindset is a big part of it. When you bring in a playful mindset or a curious mindset, you're more open and receptive versus if you had to go to a meeting and you just like, well, this is going to be like every other meeting, then we become complacent. But if you come into this mindset with, what can I learn today, or what will surprise me today, what did I miss, or what happens if I'm really present, that's a different mindset, and you're going to approach it differently. And again, that high stakes thing, if I'm going to be on this podcast with you, old Stacy would probably have studied the notes. I would be panicking that I didn't review the questions. New Stacy is like, I'm a confident person. I'm intelligent. We can have a conversation. I know how to talk to people. And this is a great way to see how quickly I can think on my feet. Or it's an opportunity. Where would I like to improve in public speaking or being a part of something else? If we have an idea that we're not failing, we're learning, then play is very conducive to what we're trying to accomplish. Did I go off track? Can you?
No. I'm listening intently here.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question one more time? Because I think I don't know if I got all of
it. What I was asking is, what is your favorite way to bring yourself into this just complete joy, or the complete exhilaration of doing the thing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so first is mindset, and secondly is bubbles. I'm team bubbles. I I
Which
have
is why you like the dishes, because there's bubbles, right?
I did used to try and blow that. Then I realized you need glycerin to make the bubbles. But that's my happy place, because bubbles for me are the epitome of something that's considered to be frivolous,
Yeah.
not, a nice to have, but it is recreation, it is joy. I went to someone and I'm like, you want to go take a bubble break? And we sat there blowing bubbles and having conversation. We passed the wand back and forth, and again, it was just a space where here's a human, you're a human, I'm a human. It's a beautiful day, and we had a great conversation because we are disarmed and we're not at edge and being wary of each other. So play is a way to remind us and to bring us into a common space where it doesn't matter what your title is or what the circumstances are. You're a human, I'm a human. Let's have a conversation. So bubbles are my go-to.
That is so awesome.
Thank you.
I think we can all relate to that. I mean, I think we all have a little bubble blower within us that we may not think we enjoy it, but the first time we see it, this is the thing that I've noticed, especially with teenagers who like to think that they've outgrown it. And for me, this is the greatest place that I've learned about play is watching teenagers, because they have internalized this attitude of, well, I have to be, and all of a sudden you give them one little moment to just get out of that. And all of a sudden there's a spark that comes back into their eye, and their smile is a little wider than normal. And for a lot of adults, I think we know that moment. We've had it before. And I think mindfulness is, a great technique, but what would mindfulness of play look like in your mind?
Seizing the moment. When you were talking about teenagers, do you remember that Nike commercial where they had the giant game of freeze tag? Do you remember
Mhm.
that?
Yep.
It's when you seize the moment and you're like, I'm going to intentionally have some fun and seize what happens. I remember this. We were older. I don't know if I had kids yet. And I think I had kids, but we just started a giant game of freeze tag, my family and I. And then they called my sisters and brother, they called their friends because we all lived in the same, near the same place. And they
Uh-huh.
pulled in, and it was so spontaneous. And we were playing tag. I remember hiding under my parents' car so I could get to the home base. And it was so spontaneous, but everybody had so much fun. So I think being intentional about taking these opportunities and being present, I think play can help you to forget about your worries and your concerns so you can be in that moment, in that joyful moment. And it is just about, what are we going to do next, or what's the next part of the game. It's thinking about, or if you're playing a literal game, it is, what's my strategy? How can I be intentional or not? You could just, I'm just going to move this piece. But again, what happens if I don't have a strategy? That
Mm-hmm.
can be a strategy too. My sister says, I never bluff. So she's like, I never bluff. We play poker, and people are like, she'll say whatever. And that's literally what she had. But people is like, think she's bluffing. She's like, I never bluff. She'll tell you right up front, I never bluff. And people don't believe her, and then they lose miserably. So I think just being okay with being in that moment whether it is because I get a lot of joy from spreadsheets sometimes, from just the joy. I mean, I literally stayed up one night making sliders, like, oh, this is so cool. That was play to me, and I was really focused on it. So I
Right.
think that mindfulness comes in that you're bringing joy into whatever you're doing, and that can then transform it into a sort of play, even if it's boring spreadsheets, or it could be cooking dinner. What if?
Yeah.
What if I did this? What would happen?
Oh yeah. I bring I bring a lot of this into whenever I'm doing coaching around sex and sexuality. Because so many people take sex so seriously. And I'm like, no, this is all about fun. This is all about pleasure. This is all about just the excitement of being with someone. You got to take this, when you get into that moment of being with this person, drop the pretense of everything's got to be perfect. If you fart, laugh. I mean, it's just part of the thing. And I see that, so many times that whether we're dealing with companies, whether we're dealing with committees, whether we're dealing with, I mean, I do podcasts, okay? I don't want them to be serious. I don't want them to be heavy-handed. I want people to enjoy being in the podcast, but also listening to the podcast. So in going out from this interview, what is your big takeaway of what when you think of yourself going out into the world and playing, given everything that's happening in the world today, what do you think is the one thing that we can do as people to get better at being this?
So if I understood the question correctly, what is one thing that we as people can do to get better at play, or to get better at being human beings?
At being human beings, of getting through life and stop taking things so fucking seriously.
Yeah, I mean, there are serious things out there. I think it's important to acknowledge them, but I kind of liken it to, if the sun shone all the time, you would have a desert. We need the rain, and dance in the rain. I mean, I've posted that I'm singing in the rain.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is just your mindset about what is happening, and a curiosity. And even if you decide, I'm going to go full tinfoil hat and make a game out of connecting the dots in what's happening in world events, I mean, I think it can be a yes and. Yes, this is serious. This is happening. My dad got hospitalized, and he told us, well, I stopped paying the rent, so they kicked me out. This 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 is my dad, and so he's putting us at ease, right? Because he's in this place that he doesn't want to be in, and he knows we don't want him to be there, and we certainly don't want to be in that. But I think when you can have that mindset and that attitude, that will help you. I mean, life is heavy and hard, and we're given these little tiny morsels of joy, and we have to savor them. That's what makes you be human and get through the day. My friend and coach Inka Wala, she talks about, if you're even grateful for eyelashes, be grateful for eyelashes. And that is, to me, play is that kind of building block. If you can embrace the joy, embrace doing something just for the sheer joy of it, that's one little tiny morsel that helps you fight the big bads that are out there. In part of Super Better, Jane McGonigal, she's like looking for 3 positives to combat each of those negatives. So go look at your 3 cat memes, or tell somebody you love them. That's what it's all about. We're in this together, and we can make a difference collectively if we don't give up, and don't give up hope. And I think play is another way for us to imagine what this world could be, because this is not our default. Society has organized itself in many different ways, and this is according to the Dawn of Everything. Societies have organized themselves in different ways. It's not a progression. We are, as a species, we're creative, and other animals are creative and adapting. I mean, there's something called a carpet beetle, and there weren't carpets hanging out in nature. So this is something that has co-evolved with humans. Or when you see your relationships with your dogs or your pets, these kind of relationships are going to be different than what you would find out in the wild, because we are influencing each other. So as human beings, yes, acknowledge this is heavy, this is hard, but you need to refill your cup. And we do that through play. We do that through embracing joy. We do that for doing something that doesn't have a purpose, that's not geared towards productivity. The side effect of all of this will be productivity and doing all the things. But when you play and you make it a regular part of your life, it doesn't have to be a 3-hour board game Dungeons and Dragons session. It's a mindset. It's an attitude of curiosity. It will help you to build that resiliency. I wish we lived in a world that people don't have to be resilient. But that's how we make it. And play brings in your community. So that's one way. I don't have all the answers, but I'm sure together we can get more answers.
Well, I think that was a beautiful way. And Stacy, thank you so much. I appreciate
thank you so much, Genie.
And I am delighted that you were willing to come and share some of this perspective. AJ will have ways to get a hold of you, and you do offer coaching in this area. Is that correct?
I am a creative coach. I'm not coaching people on how to play.
Right.
But I do bring in aspects of play. For me, it's a lot of Pokemon cards. They're very insightful. And again, it's a way I use visual tools to help people, again, bypass the protector and tap into your subconscious and more playful side, where we lower the stakes, because this is just play. We're just having fun. And then we ask ourselves better questions. So yeah, I'm also known as the Clarity Concierge.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you, Stacy. AJ, would you like to take us out?
Thanks for listening to ND and NO, a neurodiversity podcast for self-advocates and allies. A monthly discussion coming to you every fourth Thursday, 11:30 a.m. U.S. Central Time. If you or someone you know would like to be on the pod, be sure to let us know by filling out the Share Your Experience form at umbrellaus.org. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other Umbrella US events. Finally, if you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To donate to Umbrella US and learn all the latest from us, visit us at umbrellaus.org and follow on your favorite social media platforms. Thanks again. See you next time.